Beloved, be responsible and earnest in prayers. Above all, maintain constant charity towards each other, because charity does away with a multitude of sins, covers a multitude of sins. You may have noticed that there is a parallel between the readings in the upper room before the Passion and those that are being read right now in Ascension Tide, because the Church retakes them after the victory, because they contain the Lord's parting message, his last will and testimony, and therefore they have even more poignancy after the Passion. They are truly his message to his disciples until the end of time, and the Church offers these words to be meditated upon in this period, now until precisely the culmination of Pentecost. This is the first novena of history. The Lord gave it himself. Tarry in Jerusalem until you are clothed with power from on high. So a certain stillness, an awaitingness, an emptiness, a vacuum, an appeal, an ongoing Maranatha should be the tone of this coming week. Power. But in the meantime, I want to dwell for a moment with this message of the Lord. In the Last Supper, and indeed in the Gospel itself, he did not bequeath us a big book of rubrics, lest we get confused therein. What he left is very different actually from the Torah of Moses. He gave us a new commandment and repeated it as did his beloved disciple in his writings, living out love. Never forget that whatever you're doing for the Lord, and also when interpreting the law of the Lord, love is always the interpreter. How do I apply love in this difficult situation? I was moved some years ago when I happened to come across the testimony of somebody who had died and come back to life. Now, he wasn't at the point of death terribly into his faith. He was just an average man. But what was his shock when he found on the other side a very essential system which he brought back to him in the language which he had. He had been given to understand that the whole universe, the whole cosmos, was about love. It changed his life, but it also gave me to understand that's what I'm here for, that's what you're here for. It all has sense only in this. And in the final discourse of the Lord, one sees why it makes sense. He is progressively revealing his inner self, his relationship, his Trinitarian relationship, in which we are sucked in. We are all in a great current of love which makes the cosmos function. It's all driven by love. And the refusal of it is our own condemnation, and then there is no place for us in love. There is no one in heaven who does not love. The devil is fundamental hatred, and those who are in hatred mode are resembling him. And they resemble him actually bit by bit quite often in their facial expressions and even looks. Whereas a person in grace becomes serene and the eyes are crystal clear. Which do we want? I want to be specific then, because St. Peter goes on in this reading to talk about one issue, amongst others, which I'd like to dwell upon for a second. It concerns us all. Be hospitable one another without grumbling. Let each of you, according to the gift he has received, share it with the rest, as good stewards. That's a good old word, stewards of the manifold grace of God. We have in our hands a part of the cosmos given to us for our looking after. Money, land, property, a school, a family, a parish, a hermitage, a monastery, or whatever it might be, we have our bit of the creation to look after as Adam in the garden. We do it well, with one eye on him for whom we're working. Now, with regard to this element of hospitality, it's both physical and spiritual. We are hospitable to each other each time we meet each other, or we're not. Do you think a person doesn't pick it up? The subliminal message might be, you are a thorough nuisance even though I'm smiling brightly, get out of my way please. And we try to liquidate that person as soon as possible with the utmost courtesy. Do you think they might not pick it up, even on the phone? The attitude of a supernatural vision of the soul that comes as an incarnation of Christ is quite different. At that point, that person who's come out of nowhere is the only person in the universe. At that point, for me, and at that point needs my undivided attention, and I minister to Jesus in that person. We don't know why the Lord may have sent that person. It might actually make a difference between heaven and hell for that person forevermore. Now, on that realm, first of all, the physical. I remember being told this years ago when a student with regard to someone who knew how the Irish functioned. It is the ritual of refusal. Oh, can I have a cup of tea? No, absolutely can't manage a cup of tea. Now I've got to go on. 5 minutes later, just have a cup of tea. No, honestly, I've got to move on. The third offer, 5 minutes later, just a cup of tea. Oh, just a small cup of tea then. And they sit down for the next 2 hours. That's the Irish way of living. So we have to handle that, because it's expected of us too. But with regard to one specific element of allowing people close to our soul, close to our life, now that's a different ballgame. For years, I was responsible for the guest house to a large extent in the monastery, so that was quite important, because on behalf of the brethren, one did two things. One shielded them, and one also was the icon for them and for Jesus. And people pick that up. They want to know whether we are a good community, whether we are warm, whether Jesus is there, or something else. And do you think they don't pick it up pretty quickly? And so I learned very quickly the importance of just simply extending warmth. In Italy, actually, it can be even physical. You know how warm they are. But then, also, as novice master, that was important in a different way. Do you think that young people don't pick up whether the community radiates, whether there's warmth, whether Jesus is in the midst and lived and felt, or something else? They pick it up pretty quickly. And that is often the determining issue with regard to whether the Lord sends vocations and whether they stay. At the end, I'll give you this, which I composed when a postulant came from El Salvador, a long way away, a brilliant man actually, a doctor, a young man in his 30s. And I knew what that meant to come from a different culture. So we took him in with warmth. Warmth. That's the universal language of creation. It happens actually in nature. Look how nature works. It's interesting. But then, this hospitality of soul. We've got to be careful as we go through life that we don't, by a process of osmosis, allow other people's souls to come through the pores and enthrone themselves in ours and sit there. I mean people who are invasive, people who don't know the limit. It can happen. It does happen. Some vocations are more a target than others. And we have to be very careful that we actually maintain a certain inner sanctum where we are free. Now, one big one which concerns us all who have it is the use of media. You don't have to go through life in social media. You don't have to. Actually, the bishop here does not want me involved in social media at all. And I'm not into it anyway. The only difference is the question of the YouTube right now. That's very limited. But he's aware, and I make you aware. We've only got one existence, and this business of social media is a way in which other souls do get inside us, into our mind, and fill it and take away our freedom. We are thinking all their thoughts. There are too many words coming into us, and our brain was not made for them all. Moreover, there are some who can't sit down without background noise. I mean, usually some transistor or whatever it might be that's going on all the time. The television is even worse because the image as well. That's noise which is not even being listened to. It coinquinates and weakens the brain, fumes, exhaust. We've only got one life. What do we want? Freedom or contamination? There's another third element where I make a jump. Hospitality unto him. For we are tabernacles of the Most High. I know about 4 occasions when people, either children or adults, have picked up angelic singing in our little chapel. And I'm not surprised, because all the time there is given unto praise and worship and adoration and glory. It's purely vertical, and it's just for Jesus, with no functionality on the horizontal at all. But I was consoled this week when I found that others have had similar experiences. This priest is now deceased, but they found these writings and they published them afterwards, and he's a faithful Catholic priest, I believe of the Fraternity of St. Peter, now gone on to his reward. But I just want to share this with you because it reminds us that this hospitality extends also to the angelic world and to the Lord. Now he here is humbly begging that he come to the house that we share with him on earth, and that we treat him with pride of place and honor. And it's done spiritually and even physically. Now just listen to this testimony. It was June 1985, and I had been ordained for about a month. I was chaplain for a summer camp for families in the state of New Hampshire. One day, after Holy Mass, a young lad came over to me and said, "Father, please don't think I'm crazy, but I saw 2 angels, one on each side of you, whilst you were offering Mass." I was quite taken aback. This is the priest saying this, now his reaction to that, at hearing this. I comforted him and said, "I believe you. I am sure that you saw those angels, because we know that angels surround the altar whenever the sacrifice of the Mass is being offered." But he insisted, "Father, I mean it. I saw 2 angels. They were beautiful angels, one on each side of you." I reassured him and said, "I do believe you. Thank you for letting me know, because it really increases my faith." About an hour later, an elderly lady came over to me and said, "Father, may I have a word with you?" "Yes." "Father, I saw 2 angels right next to you whilst you were offering Mass." Again, I was taken aback. Just 1 hour between 2 different people giving their eyewitness account of angels at the altar during Holy Mass. Do you know this young boy who is a member of the camp? "Oh, Father, I am just a neighbour. I live across the street. I'm not part of this camp. But I have to tell you this. I saw 2 angels, one on your right and one on your left, whilst we're offering Mass." I asked for a more vivid description, and she just called them beautiful creatures with wings. I went back to the boy and I asked him for a description of the angels. I asked if they had wings, and he said, "Oh yes, Father, you could see the wings." "How beautiful were they?" "Father, they were awesome." What these 2 witnesses told me that day has stayed with me all these years. I am very grateful to them for having told me, because it has helped me to have a vivid sense of the presence of angels whenever I offer the sacrifice of the Mass. I just finished with another parallel one, very short but also to the point. We're not here for ourselves. And woe betide the person who uses the slot of liturgy to put himself forward. And that's going on, not just celebrants now, but lay people too, the new rite. They like to be seen, don't they? Now, some years ago, actually, I think immediately after ordination, I was in Medjugorje, and I happened yesterday to see the person who I was with and her group. I was with her group, and she had this and she reminded me what happened. That week, there'd been a lot of preaching in the English Mass, very sort of, if you like, human, I'll leave it at that, human. Kind of stuff that leads to applause or to even laughing. On one day, they came to the pulpit, an English, fairly young priest. With him, no one laughed, no one applauded, and he gave this message. He told us what prayer was about and what it wasn't. He told us that without one element, we can't meet him. It's a profound stillness. Talked about stillness to meet our still King. And she, while he was preaching this message, saw a beautiful blue light right round him, as long as he was carrying on with the homily. And she was about to go up with him to tell him that at the end of the homily, outside. And lo and behold, a person out of the blue jumped in before her and said, "Father, while you were preaching that homily, I saw a beautiful blue light around you." Now, what I picked up on that was this, and I've forgotten it. The Lord is doubly present in our celebration, and both are very, very important. And to forget that the divine element of the Word is very much an integral part of it, and not for man, for the place of the glory of man, is a great, great mistake. If we leave our people with a human factor, a feel-good factor, and worse still, a spectacular theatrical factor in which we've been glorified, we've got a very severe judgment coming. As Milton said way back in England, the hungry sheep look up and are not fed.